And Scott, I think leading up to this is that ever approaching September 15th deadline, of course, of which ByteDance has to sell that U.S. business of TikTok to the U.S. How do you see that all playing out?
I think, Taylor, with the announcement by the Chinese that they are going to assert their rights under their new export control laws to regulate that technology, it's going to be really hard for a deal to fully consummate by the 15th. And so I think then what we'll be looking at is, will the Trump administration be willing to extend their deadline, or are they going to go forward? And if they do, then we're going to gate a cat and mouse with users of TikTok and the U.S. government.
Is China doing the right thing, in your opinion, by flexing their powers?
I think, actually the Chinese have been amazingly restrained in terms of responding to the U.S. actions in all these tech spaces. I think for the most part, what they've been trying to do is have this Trump storm pass through the fall and then see what awaits them in January. And of course, January is a long time away. And so they couldn't do nothing. So this is really just one way to just remind folks that they exist, that they can influence things. But if they're really going to retaliate and go toe-to-toe with the Trump administration, there would be much tougher things that the Chinese would roll out beyond just updating their export control list.
Talk to me more about how that view folds into the world of WeChat. We were getting some headlines in the last few hours where WeChat users asked a judge to allow expedited discovery. They want to see evidence for Trump's order banning that app. WeChat, we know, really important there in China. What would be the ramifications if China were to flex its muscle and perhaps lose out maybe on some business here in the U.S.?
Sure. Well, I mean, good luck with them getting the evidence in court on national security issues. I just think it's really unlikely. But they do have some possibilities that they're going to be able to slightly slow this down a little. I think at the end of the day, national security justifications, whether they're perfectly defended or not, oftentimes trump the needs of users and others. The real big question on Tencent will be, would the Trump administration just block WeChat in the United States, or would they try and really restrict U.S. business with WeChat in China, including American companies, airlines, hotels that use WeChat to do business in China? That would have really big ramifications. And anyway, either way, we will be, looking at this down the road to see how the Chinese respond. They're not just going to sit passively forever.
And they're not sitting passively. They, at least within the chip and the memory chip sector, are certainly taking now a very active approach, doubling down on own investments for their own chip makers to further isolate U.S. chip makers over there. That, too, the right move, them taking a very active approach in that sector.
Well, since the mid-1990s, China has wanted to build its semiconductor industry and has thrown hundreds of billions of dollars at it, established a lot of cooperative relationships with American, European, Japanese, Korean chip companies. And they've caught up some, but they're still really far behind. And I know, though, because they see the trade war and the tech war and the growing concern expressed in Washington and other capitals, that they want to develop that independence. Now, obviously, they need to invest, and they need to invest fast. Will they be able to really develop that kind of independence? I think it's really unlikely. So for them, it's a hedge against further decoupling. But really, China's tech sector is only going to grow in a globalized economy. And so the Chinese are going to need to really figure out how to repair the relationship with Washington and other countries.
Scott, you said it's a globalized economy. I'm curious, though, if you see the tech tensions creating a bifurcated tech Cold War, where you have Eastern tech and you have Western tech, and they do not coexist together.
That is one possible outcome. Of course, that would require the U.S. to act in a way that brings enough other countries along with it, not only that have the same worries about China, but think that's the best solution for them. If you just look at memory in semiconductors, the U.S. isn't the only player. It's not just Micron. You've got Samsung, SK Hynix, Japanese, European producers as well. So if the U.S. really wanted to bifurcate the world in semiconductors and in memory, they're going to have to bring along these others. And right now, it's not looking like everybody's really wants the final outcome to be a bifurcated world. They want more market access, greater IP protection, no forced tech transfer and things like that. They'd like to be able to sue for peace and get adjustments to how they're treated, not just simply divide the world in half.